Hi, we're back. Untitled Crypto Podcast. This week, episode 2, we have a lot to discuss. We were going to talk about Avi's skincare, but Puerto Rico is a bum, so we will delay that to the next episode when his eye creams arrive. We're going to talk about comments.
Taking care of it. Don't worry, guys. We're taking care of it.
Yeah, we're working on it. Avi and I collabed. We got him on a regimen. They're going to look amazing by episode 5. I got you, babe.
I have a feeling I've seen that man's face. Who is he?
That's Kobe. Kobe has all the answers. I've got the feeling that behind it all is an organization that's a lot bigger than just his gang.
All right, we're going to talk about comments from the last episode. Y'all are vocal. Wormhole, 0x Sifu, Meta in all the senses, market bounds, NFT hate, general FUD, people getting angry at Z when he talks about ETH and cancel culture. That's it.
All right.
That's spicy. It's a
good.
spicy meatball.
Spicy meatball.
Are you going to do like a makeup tutorial style like video where you're going to deploy
well, first Melton's going to
live?
teach me and then I'm going to teach the world.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna do it together, like on the episode. It's gonna be quick. It's a basic regimen.
And this was in response to the comments.
Yeah. Well, everybody was really concerned. Every time I get on the podcast, half of the comments are, "Dude, you're not getting any sleep. You need to get more sleep." And I always come back with it. I can't do anything about it. I'm just.
You're like, this is how my face looks. This is how my face looks.
I look like.
Yeah.
I swear. And then everybody will say, "No. There's something wrong with you. You're about to die."
They're pretty mean, dude. No, like the comments are pretty bad sometimes.
Wait, Kobe.
I think it's a little bit endearing that people like care enough to be like, "Dude, there's something wrong with you. Fix it." I'm like, all right, I'll do my best.
If that's how you read it, that's good. You should keep reading them like that.
I will.
That's not how I read them. YouTube comments are weird because on Twitter, I get it when people are mean. They've got a non-anonymous egg or like a frog or something. But on YouTube, it's just linked to their like whole identity, and there's like videos of them with their family with like 7 views, and I'm always like, that's a very offensive comment. That's like very incendiary. And I go look, and then there's like the last time there was someone doing a handstand. They were like practicing doing a handstand. There was like their handstand progression over the last couple of months, and I was like, well, I can see your belly now, so your comment and your belly's next to each other. Thanks. All right, so some of these comments. The top one is great. This one says, "I love watching these group chats. It makes me feel like I have friends or something."
Yeah, that was good. I like that one. That was cool.
Yeah, I saw you reply to actually.
Yeah.
Oh, you did.
Melton, someone says you're a Fed. This one says Melton is definitely a Fed. Never heard anyone above 20 say fire and vibe out loud before.
Let me live. Let me live. Wow.
It would be bad if we started a podcast with a Fed, wouldn't it? They'd be like, we've really screwed up here.
Yeah.
Good infiltration. Lots of comments about Ledger not being here.
Yeah.
Ledger looks nice with longer hair. There were, like, a lot of people were angry that you were on the podcast, Melton.
Yeah, people are like, get the girl out, kill her. Like, people, it's very interesting. Like, people don't even listen to anything I have to say. They're like, it's a girl, kill the girl. Oh God, get her out. It's crazy.
There was a lot, but there was some Melton simps as well. There was a lot of people saying they would buy your SimpDAO.
SimpDAO has legs. I'm just saying, SimpDAO has legs.
We can make that happen.
Yeah, all the other ones went to zero very quickly, though. I saw they have sellers where the amount of decimal places they're using in the sale price is just going up. So it's like 0.00003 or something now for the sale.
Oh
it's
my
like,
God.
At that point, it don't cover the gas, does it?
No, I'm going to design the best Ponzi for my SimpDAO. We're all going to get rich.
All right, good. As long as I can get in early, I'm good. Someone said this format of just chatting is better than the interviews. They don't have to pretend like they're not just shilling their bags.
Oh my, yo, that's messed up. I feel like we talked about so much last time.
We talked about Cardano, and I don't own Cardano. I didn't shill my bags.
There was actually a few people commenting that were like unhappy with your comments on Cardano.
Oh, okay.
They're a mob, dude.
They were displeased. Some people are saying they were on the fence, but now they're going all in on DeFi kingdoms. So maybe you were shilling your bags.
Let's go.
I was flooding your bag. I could listen to Melton 24/7. Absolutely brilliant woman. Wait, that one's my dad.
Your dad's gonna be number one. He's gonna be number one in the Simp-DAO. I might be your stepmom, Kobe.
Oh my god.
That would be an interesting episode of this podcast.
Yeah, there's a lot of comments about your eyes, Avi. A lot of people telling you to turn your mic down. People like the intro and outro. And there's just so many comments about Ledger. People either really angry he's not here or like saying that he doesn't deserve to be here, and they're all very mean comments. He just doesn't do this podcast. He does the other one. It's just on the same channel for now.
Wait, doesn't Ledger have his own podcast, Kobe?
He's got like 6. He does the Ledgercast Up Only, the Weekly Open, Fluffcast, and he's got one about gardening and like home DIY stuff.
Really?
Damn, I need to watch that last
one.
Bro.
Wait, I have to give a shout out to Ledger. This chair, this is the Steelcase chair. This was recommended by Ledger. So I was influenced by Ledger.
Podcast?
No, I tweeted about like the fact that I'm buying like $4,000 NFTs, but sitting in an office chair I got on the side of the road. And so I was like, I need to buy a legit office chair because like I only get one spine. And Ledger recommended this one, and it's really, so thank you, Ledger, for saving my back.
Is this a paid ad?
No, I'm
Is that the Herman? The Herman Steelcase?
No, this is the Think, the Steelcase Think, or the Leap.
Okay.
But I don't think it's Herman Miller. But it's like, it's leather, it's nice. The arms are it's like very adjustable. I feel very adjusted. It's great.
Furniture status, influencer, successful. All right, let's get into it. I can't remember what the first topic was.
So we went through comments. Wait, hold on.
Funds are Sifu.
Wormhole.
Oh yeah, so lost loads of money and then Jump paid it all off.
Immediately, like 15 minutes.
But here's the thing that I think people still don't understand this. Wormhole is a Jump project, and Certus is part of Jump. Right, so I think the big bet that Jump is making is on Solana. So the sort of the big thesis, where we talked about this around multi-chain and cross-chain interoperability, is like you want to do financial computation on the L1 where it's most abundant and like best priced and has the lowest latency. So I think the bet Jump is making, right, especially with Wormhole, is if they can suck all these assets from other chains into Solana, then Solana will effectively become the trading and execution layer, right? And that's what Jump does, is a market-making firm. So for them, like, this is a huge multi-year bet that they're making with Jump Crypto. So to me, it makes perfect sense. Like, they needed to do that in order to continue on sort of this vision of Solana being the execution layer for all crypto trading.
Yeah, and I mean, $300 million is like 36 hours of trading for Jump, right? So it's like
they make that much. Oh my god!
They made a lot of money last year. So I mean, $300 million to them. I mean, what Melton said is totally right. It's just completely worth it. I mean, if this ecosystem is going to be worth 200, 300, 500 billion in 5 years, then yeah, throw 300 million at it, save it for a bit. I'm surprised that it was only Jump though. I expected Alameda to come in too.
Yeah, well, if it's a Jump product, they bought Certus, right?
Yeah. They bought Certus.
So so if it's their product, maybe it makes sense to just in-house it. Maybe they'll just launch a token in like 3 months, and like Jump owns a little bit more of the tokens than they previously were going to own.
Well, that's what Bitfinex did. I mean, the Leo token this week is going absolutely crazy. And if you recall, the Leo token was created, I believe, in response to the Bitfinex hack back in 2017, right? They got hacked. They said, hey, we're not going to make you whole. We're going to give you this Leo token. And now people who got the Leo token have been like more than made whole, right? They paid everyone back, I think, within 6 or 7 months. And then they also had this Leo token. So it's been done before.
That was the reserves right token was 2016.
Yeah.
Oh, and reserve rights is okay. That was before Leo. Leo came later.
Leo was in response to the crypto capital hack, basically, or not hack, but the seizure by the feds. And they said that they were like, "Oh, here's this token." And there's actually like some pretty weird game theory around it, which I think they were very smart about, right? Which is they said if people return the hack money, then this token, they'll use 80% of that hacked money to buy back the token. So it actually gives the hacker an out. the hacker can just buy a bunch of Leo, return all the BTC, and then make a ton of money, but it won't ever be traced back to him, right? If he can like source Leo in the correct ways. It's kind of like this valve to get a hacker to actually make a ton of money, but not expose themselves, which was pretty smart, I think.
That is interesting.
Oh, wait, but what I don't, so I thought when I read the text attached to the transaction, that was the massive exploit, right, on Wormhole, I thought the hacker offered to give back a bulk of the money and only keep 10 mil. And I'm like, why wouldn't, was that not?
So that's what, someone offered that to them, Certus offered that to them.
Oh, okay, Certus was saying that to the hacker, okay,
yeah.
got it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're in that situation, you've got, how much did they steal? Like $300 million, $250 million.
Depends on the price.
And they offer you 10 mil. What are you doing?
I mean, I feel like it depends on their position that they were in. I mean, because like,
Yeah, what about you?
They bought Bored Apes,
honestly.
didn't they? They they turned the cash into USDC and then they bought bases.
Because you can never. Well, if there are eyes on it like that, they can never really cash that out. I mean, I know of all the hacks that I've seen in crypto, they like all the addresses are immediately like marked and monitored. Yeah. So it's like you can't really get it out of crypto unless you just want to, I guess, I don't know, do DeFi with 300 million forever.
Yeah, but USDC, right? Like USDC can blacklist you. Same with Tether.
Yeah.
I don't know. Then your other options are like all the other stable coins don't really have enough liquidity. And even if you Tornado Cash some of the ETH, Tornado Cash is auditable.
How would you get the money out if you needed to get the money out? If you had like 300 mil?
This is money laundering podcast now.
Yeah, now it's like, which one of us stole the 300 million?
No, I'm just asking, thought experiment, that's all. Yeah,
this is like that how to get away with murder podcast.
I think that size is virtually impossible, or like close to being impossible. You'd have to do like a 10-year operation, I think. And you just have to accept that you'd get like 20% of the money out, and anything above that would be a bonus. But because you can't tornado cash that much, you'd have to do it over such a long time. Yeah. And imaginably on the on your cash out end, they just want to know, why does all of your money come from tornado cash? So I think it'd be really, really, really difficult. But like, I'm surprised like 10 mil I think is insulting, right? It's not even 10%.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not accepting 10 mil if it's me, but I think I'd negotiate. I wouldn't want the impossible to, like, this massive amount of money that's impossible to ever retrieve. I think I'd negotiate and say, like, look, I'll do it for like 35. I'll give you it back for 35. Especially now Jump is just backstopping it, and like it's all a bonus to them.
Yeah. I guess you'd still have to be careful with it, right? Just because you cut a deal doesn't absolve you of a crime, right? So like, what if they paid you 10 mil and you cashed out, and then Coinbase figured out who you were, you could still get in huge trouble, right?
Okay, but hold on. I wanna sort of pick on the word crime here. So again, what was done here wasn't quote unquote a crime, right? So if code is law and the code has bugs in it that allows you to utilize the code in unintended ways, is that crime? Right, like the DAO hack wasn't a hack. It was using the contract in a way that the contract allowed. It just was not the way that the creators of the contract intended it to be used. But the DAO hacker didn't do anything untoward. They simply took advantage of the contract in a way that was not anticipated, right? It was not aligned with the original design. So I think that like introduces this interesting space around, if you're using a smart contract in a way that's feasible in the way it's written, like, who's at fault here?
I think there's actually case law behind this, right? Where I'm sure there are a bunch of instances where a bank has had its records exposed or somebody hacks into a database because the code technically allows you to do that, but it's still a crime, right?
Well, no, but remember, actually this was last year. Do you remember when I think it was Citibank mistakenly fat-fingered a transaction and sent $900 million to a company instead of the 9 million? And there was a whole court case, and the court was like, yeah, you get to keep the 900 mil because you didn't do anything wrong. Do you remember this?
Wait, I do. In that case, they already had that was so funny. I think Matt Levine wrote like a really long column about this. But basically, the people that they paid the 900 million to, Citibank already owed them a ton of money, and they just were refusing to pay them.
Okay,
and then they
got
like
it.
accidentally fat fingered 900 mil to them, and they got it, and they were like, "Oh, sweet, thanks for paying off our
Yeah.
debts."
Don't-
He makes it,
don't.
"Wait, no, we didn't need to pay you. Give it back."
Yeah.
And that-
Oh, I should
yeah,
say
that-
fire.
Yeah, I guess-
since I'm a Fed. Fire.
I guess it's like whether you think code is law, and I think in most of the cases, code is not actually law. I at least I think a lot of the cypherpunk want it to be, but in practice it isn't. So yeah, I but whether it's a crime or not, who knows? Probably is, and like if you don't engage with where you took it from, and I think it makes you look a little bit more like a bad actor, perhaps. I'm sure the person on the other end's not like, oh, look, there's lots of money freely to be given away here. But
I don't think.
I prefer it if code was law, so.
Do you think intent matters? So like if it was an error because the guy like missed a semicolon or something in his code, or if he just wrote it in a way that was perfect, he just didn't think of how you might interact with it. Like, do you think that distinction matters, or is it just, oh, the way that the code is written?
I don't think it matters, honestly. I think, well, if it's designed in a way that people can exploit it, I don't think it matters if it, or like how it really gets exploited. Like I think even the situation with Wormhole is like a smart contract issue, but the fix that they had up for it was like publicly visible on GitHub. I think I saw like a few days before, like it was a part of another push that they were like fixing changes with. So like if you were really paying attention, which I'm sure the person who did it was, like you got to be more on top of stuff like that.
What if the person who did it was an insider? Like that was always my theory on the DAO hack, is the DAO hack was an inside job.
Yeah, I often think that, honestly. I think there's like an auditor who's just like cleaning up, and it gets all the projects sent to them, and they just make a note of all the exploits and like go back to them 6 months later. Because like especially a year or two ago, there was like maybe like a handful of people who had the skills and like knowledge to pull some of these things off. Maybe now it's like hundreds of people, but a couple of years ago I think it was maybe like 20 or 30 people in the world that
I think it's still a really small number, especially for like the newer L1s too. I mean, like, especially for Solana, because Solana's not EVM. I saw somebody say that like this is actually bullish for like the Solana ecosystem, because you have hackers now like looking at stuff and trying to like break things, which I think is kind of cool. Like the stuff in like built in Solana is not as hardened definitely as the EVM and Ethereum is, just because it's so much newer. So you're definitely going to see hacks and stuff like this happen. I feel like the smartest devs are always the hackers, honestly. Like they're the ones that are trying to break stuff.
But I also think, like, in effect, right, all of these things are massive bug bounties, right? And so I do think that they are, right? And we've seen this time and time again, contracts getting exploited. A lot of times contracts getting exploited using the exact same exploit over and over again. So I do think, like, for someone to be aware of this, A, you have to be really paying close attention to the project and to understand, like, the smart contract calls and opcodes really well. 2, you have to be actively tracking development, like, which requires you to be actively monitoring the GitHub. And then 3, I think from like an upgrade perspective, like I think there is this interesting element, and there's tension around this in the Solana ecosystem, like how much is developed in public versus in private, right? Because a lot of the Solana code is like not developed in public, right? And I think part of it is when you're like patching exploits, like potential exploits, how much of that do you want to be transparent about? So there's this interesting sort of like question from a DevOps perspective on the security side, how much of that do you do in public versus in private?
Yeah. I think there's some interesting questions around Vitalik's post, because Vitalik sort of gave this like preemption of the wormhole issue, right? He wrote this piece on multi-chain and like bridges, but to layer 2s rather than alternative chains. And we spoke about it when he came on Up Only a little bit as well. And then not long afterwards, like basically what he was talking about happened. So I wonder if it gives additional credibility to that that thesis, or if anyone has any thoughts around what Vitalik said and how they think the future looks. and if we're about to enter like bridge exploit season.
Well, this goes back to one thing we talked about a little bit last week around my controversial take at the end of the pod, because you guys took all the good ones and then I had to like scramble for something. I do think we're starting to see a lot more interest in building on top of Bitcoin as like an L1. I do think the base chain, whose security model you use, it really does matter. And so I think there's an interesting sort of like element here where, again, the bridges are only as secure as the way the bridges are managed. And this also came up with Avalanche, if you recall, when the Avalanche bridge launched, right? There's like 5 billion in the Avalanche bridge, and someone uncovered the fact that there was a single key, right, controlling those funds. Right, again, fortunately nothing happened there, but that's a huge potential exploit that has the potential just completely decimate an entire ecosystem. So I think one of the things people are starting to think about is like, okay, in the future, I can move my assets across chain. I can do my trade execution and my DeFi stuff on other chains where financial computation is cheaper and faster. But the base chain I want to reconcile back to, I think there's a growing like appreciation for Bitcoin's security model. So I think we're going to see a lot more built on top of Bitcoin. That's something I'm bullish about. And full disclosure, I'm on the board of the Stacks Foundation. So I'm like quite bullish on Stacks. But I think generally there's now 300 million in Bitcoin DeFi TVL. And I think that number is going to continue to grow because as people think about like what is the consensus model I want to use, like ultimately what's the security model I want to depend on, I think like Bitcoin's consensus model is extremely resilient, extremely robust. It's been battle tested for the last 13 years. So I do think there's 300 million.
300 million in TVL.
Yeah, compared to
so tiny.
One wormhole hack.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's so
one
tiny,
wormhole.
it is tiny, right? But I think again, it's from 0 to 300 in like a fairly short period of time. And I think it's only going to continue to grow. So I do think there's some merit to it. And again, I think maintaining consensus, especially when a bunch of chains shift to proof of stake, like is a full-time job. And there's just not enough people paying attention or like deep enough in the weeds to actually do it, right? And a ton of the VCs that own these coins like don't necessarily have the capacity to participate in consensus in a meaningful way.
I don't know. 300 million actually seems pretty large given the fact that absolutely nobody talks about. I guess if you had asked me, hey, how much TVL is there on Bitcoin DeFi, I would have said, I don't know.
I would say
Zero.
Zero. Yeah.
Fair.
So,
Totally fair.
That actually seems like how does that work? Like how does Stacks work? It just like is it basically an L2 to Bitcoin where it just settles to Bitcoin in the same way that, you know, a rollup would settle to Bitcoin?
Yes. So basically it's a layer on top of Bitcoin. It's leveraging Bitcoin's security model, but then it has its own consensus model built on top of it. And then the core innovation is the Clarity, the programming language, right? It's a smart contract programming language that just allows much more flexibility than Bitcoin's UTXO model, which again, we talked about last week with Cardano has like inherent limitations, right? And then there's also Rootstock. Like people are increasingly building on Rootstock, which is merge mined with Bitcoin. So we'll see how it develops, but I do think like there's a ton of Bitcoin collateral out there. Bitcoiners aren't using that collateral. They're looking at the DeFi ecosystem and they're like, oh, this is shit. But I bet if you gave them an opportunity to earn yield or like participate in some of these products, they would do that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to
even Sailor's
huge
looking for yield
from the Bitcoin people to actually use DeFi if it was blessed as pure.
Wait, Avi, yeah. I love how you said Bitcoin people like they're lepers.
I mean,
they're anti everything else. They're anti everything else crypto.
Exactly.
But that's interesting, right? That's an interesting point because there's not many ecosystems in crypto where people are so singular and religiously singular about a particular asset. You see it in Cardano. There's a lot of Cardano people who are Cardano only, I think. There's like places where there's wealth effect, like in the Ethereum ecosystem, people that got rich on Ethereum and now Ethereum maxis and don't like everything else. But I think a lot of those people have a little bit of open-mindedness and they don't mind like Polygon and stuff. Whereas Bitcoin people are very Bitcoin only. And at the same time, having an untapped ecosystem of people who are so fundamentally bullish on only one thing, it's like it's like fertile ground for Ponzi season, right? Because like if you go to Avalanche and Solana and Ethereum, all the assets have reached a valuation potential. So you're looking for new innovations in DeFi or someone trying something new, and that's quite hard to find. And that's where you look around, you're like, I can't find anything good to buy because everything's like maxed out or everything's already pumped. Everything's already built up. Whereas you go to, I was looking at Cardano because I was like, all right, if shitcoin season starts on Cardano, I'm interested because all these people have really been waiting to deploy their money somewhere. And I think Bitcoin fits a little bit like that as well. Like if you start having an ecosystem being built on Bitcoin, there are tons of people who have sat around for maybe years now watching loads of people have fun, like using Arv or doing like weird shit on Ethereum, on other chains. And they've just been sat there like, I'm Bitcoin only, I'm not paying attention to this, who might now go through similar cycles. The main question for me is Bitcoin people are very, very anti-token. And
right. But Kobe, I want
so I wonder how that happens.
But I want to introduce like a ideological inconsistency here. So Bitcoin people are very anti-token, but they were all very pro BlockFi, which is it's a bank effectively. So what I don't get, right, is like there's this strong anti-bank ideology and this strong ideology of not your keys, not your coins. But those very same people talking about not your keys, not your coins are promoting the use of BlockFi, which is effectively a bank that takes custody of your coins and gives you like 6%. So I think there are like some really unique ideological inconsistencies within like the Bitcoin maximalist mindset that I'm not a psychologist. I can't figure it out, but it's very inconsistent, right? And then they're like, oh, well, DeFi is shit. And I'm like, well, at least it's non-custodial.
I wonder if it has to do with safety. Like I feel like Bitcoin maxis feel like Bitcoin is very safe. Like they know exactly what it does. They know it's not going to change. And like all of the DeFi stuff, I feel like they see a lot of these hacks. Like they see Ethereum changing all the time. Like I don't think they really feel, I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe it's that they don't feel safe like moving their money to other places. I know you were saying with like the bridge thing, if there's going to be various bridge hacks, maybe if they felt more secure with the bridges, then I don't know. Maybe they'd be more willing to do other stuff. But I don't think that I know like Vitalik said, the L1 to L1 bridges are different from the roll up to L1 bridges. But I don't think that this specific case is like relatable to that because like this is a smart contract hack. It wasn't like compromising the validators or whoever was doing the multi-sig of that bridge. So it's different in that way. I know that IBC, like in Cosmos, is designed slightly different in that like the validators are actually like running light clients of the other blockchains in IBC. So they're validating that way. And that's how like they easily communicate with each other. But I do think we're going to see like the bridge designs. I think they're going to like I think it's going to be like they're going to come to conclusion on something on what the best design is going forward. Because I know a lot of them, some have tokens, some don't have tokens. Some are planning to be L1s, like some aren't planning to be L1s. I think we're going to see like more consensus on that moving forward and like what the most secure way to design them is.
Maybe for the Bitcoin maxes, we just need to rebrand stuff. Like they hate DeFi, so let's just call it like something else. And like instead of having an EVM sidechain, we can just have a BVM sidechain, the Bitcoin virtual machine, and I just change the names of stuff, and then like we're doing BiFi on the BVM, and just don't talk about it. Like, oh no, it's much better than Ethereum, and it uses Bitcoin as collateral, but it's just the same.
But seriously, branding and business development is like huge now. It's huge because people. I think it's huge in two ways. Because like, one, people don't really understand the underlying tech all that well anyway. So it's like what they see is what it is. Like that's how they digest it. But also it's like that's how people learn about new things that are external to crypto. Like if you're not already in crypto, it's hard for you to learn about any of this new stuff. You don't really have that like base framework to compare their stuff to. So the business development is actually really important, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's everything, right? I mean there are all these other institutions that have popped up kind of similar to BlockFi. I think River is one of them that I can think of that just brand itself as Bitcoin first, and then a bunch of Bitcoiners kind of flock over to those types of institutions. So I'm on board. When do you want to launch?
Hey, BiFi. BiFi.
Yeah, well, we'll raise 500 million first, and then I don't know, launch some point. Who cares? That's not the important bit, is it?
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I also do think that like the philosophical difference between Bitcoiners and the rest of the crypto community comes from the fact that Bitcoin is very much so, let's be safe with money and let's not move fast and break things. And Ethereum is let's move fast and break things. And people in the Bitcoin community look at hacks of Wormhole, like $300 million hack. Like how disgusting could you be to be so reckless with 300 million with $1 billion, right? This is people's money we're talking about. Why would you mess with it? Why would you like build something that wasn't 100% secure, right? I think that's a little bit of the backing behind it. It's discussed with that.
But I think the core issue there, right, is Bitcoin is not, like Bitcoin's inflation schedule is fixed. All these other protocols, they have more variable inflation schedules, right? So the issue with Bitcoin is like 85% of all Bitcoin that exists have already been mined. So if you're caught in a hack and there's some monumental hack in Bitcoin where a ton of Bitcoin are lost, the cost of replacing that Bitcoin, because the inflation schedule is fixed, is going to be extremely high, right? There's sort of this one-sided, really asymmetrical risk of loss, whereas another protocol, say for example, like another L1 gets hacked and they lose a ton of money, like if the inflation rate is 10% a year or it has variable inflation rate, they can simply choose to apply more inflation for an extended period of time, right, and create more coins. I think part of it is also Bitcoin's like strong focus on limited supply, only 21 million Bitcoin, makes people feel like every little bit of Bitcoin they own is that much more precious to them. So I do think that is a really important limitation, is like there is no protocol inflation in Bitcoin, right? You're not getting pro rata protocol inflation as a result of these design mechanisms. Like it's a fixed supply, and the only way to get more Bitcoin is to buy it or earn it, right? But you can't earn enough to make up for what you potentially could lose at a hack. So I think that's the other dynamic, and that's just fundamentally not going to change.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I like the idea that you buy Bitcoin because it doesn't change, and you buy everything else because it does. And like Bitcoin's sort of won its category, and everything else is in a knife fight with each other, trying to like get to the top of like, you know, smart contract settlement layer or something.
What's the prize though?
What's
the prize in the knife fight?
Founders get rich.
Money. Money, power.
You get to build a sick religion like Bitcoin. I mean, all sorts
Bitcoin's
of benefits.
the best
And then
religion.
you name a stadium, name a sports stadium or something.
Does that mean Crypto.com won the knife fight?
FTX was first.
Well, yeah, there's quite a lot of them now, isn't there?
Yeah. I don't know.
Or you name a stadium and an esports team. Blockchain.com just sponsored an esports team. I'm pretty sure all of the LCS is now just like Crypto.com versus FTX versus Blockchain.com.
Yeah.
So
Wait,
that's what we achieved.
I have a question. Has anyone ever used Blockchain.com for anything?
I used the Block Explorer in 2012.
Yeah, they had
2013.
a good block explorer for a while, and they have a pretty big loan book. We actually talked with them a bit, potentially like doing some loans for them, but we never closed the deal on that.
Do any retail users still use Blockchain.com?
I think they have a mobile business, but I don't know how it's doing. It's weird because they had the most popular wallet at one point, I think. They had Block Explorer and the most popular wallet and the highest traffic, highest web traffic of any Bitcoin site. But they were really slow to launch an exchange, and I think that's how they lost a ton of their retail attention. But yeah, they're very B2B now, I think.
Oh man, the main banner on blockchain.com is NFTs are coming to blockchain.com now. I'm on the website. Let's
Wow.
go.
They were also the main exchange for BitClout. They were the launch exchange for BitClout, weren't they?
You mean
just went
DeCo?
down. Yeah, rebranded within the first 6 months because the launch was.
DeCo, which actually dovetails
contentious.
nicely into our next topic. Let's talk about Meta.
Oh yeah,
We'll go to Sifu later. Let's talk about Meta.
going to zero.
Yeah, going directly to zero.
Yeah, investors have learned the metaverse is not real.
But you got 26% in one day. Like Facebook's trading like a shitcoin.
Yeah.
Remember we talked
instead of,
about
like,
last
us
episode?
becoming, like, I think so.
How like everything is starting to trade like just ridiculously. I think it's kind of like evidence of that.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like
yeah,
everybody's
like-
like, oh, crypto is going to become traditional, and now traditional has just become crypto, and it's just shitcoins everywhere. Like if you look
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
I think I say this last time. If you look at the charts, it's like Asana's just looks like it's a shit coin. DocuSign looks like it's a shit coin. Meta looks like it's
Peloton.
Snapchat went down 30% and then up 45%. I mean,
I think it was 62% by the time market opened
After
next
hours,
day.
right?
Yeah,
that's
after
crazy.
hours, like by market open next day, it was up 62%. And people are like, "Oh, Bitcoin's too volatile." I'm like, "Bitch, do you have eyes? Are you seeing this?"
Yeah.
It is weird though. Do you think it's like a good thing on a macroeconomic perspective when, you know, the big serious assets that have like are wiping or adding like hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap in like single candles? It don't feel good to me. It feels like an omen of some kind.
Well,
yeah, I'm not a macro guy, but something feels wrong.
Well, I think it's like firms that trade in these stocks, right? They don't want to hold their positions overnight. That's the issue, right? So you get a lot of activity around market close and market open because people don't want to hold positions overnight due to volatility. I think the other interesting trend is also like the inclusion of and exclusion of certain assets from funds. Like so much of the activity in these stocks comes from like ETFs and other structured products and portfolios. So as these values fluctuate, right, you can see huge trades taking place because people are rebalancing or readjusting portfolios based on like specific strategy or mandate. But I do think like there's an interesting tweet thread about this. I'll have to try to find it. Someone was saying probably the best strategy of all time from a public markets perspective is to trade market open and market close, because in periods of volatility, people don't want to hold positions overnight just because there's so much volatility around market open and market close.
My main
Crypto
two
never
thoughts
closes, so fuck that strategy.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish it did. But my main two thoughts on Meta, Facebook and Meta, is like the first one is Mark Zuckerberg has been selling his stock like tens, 8 figures every single day for the last year. He's just been dumping his stock. I think that's amazing. And the second thing that I've been thinking about is how Meta's pivot to the Metaverse is sort of the opposite of what Amazon did from their pivot from marketplace to like cloud hosting, because Amazon built a product that was gained a huge amount of traction as being very useful internally, and then decided to sell that to other people, right? They built AWS. All teams were like using it like within Amazon, and they were like, great, this is a great product that other people will want. Whereas Facebook's pivoted to some potentially visionary, speculative future that has zero product market fit anywhere. It's just like this trendy, hyped term that cropped up in niche internet culture and became financialized. And at first when they did it, I thought, holy shit, that's quite brave to take a visionary step like that. And now I think it actually just looks desperate. Like, wait, maybe it's not brave at all. It's just like the thrash of death.
But the reality is this, right? This was the first quarter where Facebook lost users. For the last however many years, right? Facebook has been consistently adding users. And if you remember, Facebook did a project where they had these balloons they would like float that streamed Wi-Fi to people. Why? Because they've tapped the entire addressable market for their product. So where are they going to find new users, right, to sell ads to? People are leaving Facebook. People are spending more time on TikTok now, which is why they're doubling down on Instagram Reels, right, and like video. But the issue is it's no longer a growth stock. It's no longer a growth company. It's a later stage value company, right? And the current multiple, which is like 15x forward EBITDA, I believe, like that's, no, not EBITDA, 15x forward earnings, I think, or something like that. It's that's in line with how not growth stocks, but value stocks trade, right? So I think there's this interesting question, like as these tech companies, the FANGs or FAMGA or MANGA or whatever you want to call it, becomes more mature, right? What's the new growth asset going to be? I think crypto, by the way, is hugely attractive in portfolios as a growth asset.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think there are actually a couple interesting things about Facebook that tie back into crypto in many ways. I mean, one of them, if you look at what Facebook is doing right now, they're pushing into the metaverse because they think that they can own the hardware for the metaverse, right? Because they have the Oculus. And that's what they're pushing out. Because right now they kind of got screwed over by Apple, because Apple has introduced all this new software to stop people from being able to be, like, stop you from tracking people, basically, and collecting information. And they said that they're going to lose like $10 billion a year or something like this to the fact that Apple updated their services and people aren't giving up their information as easily, because why would they give up their information to Facebook? People hate Facebook, right? And so, like, okay, well, maybe if we can force this metaverse future and we own the hardware and the software, then we can still collect data on people. And so I think that actually goes back in a crypto in a big way, right? Because now you have this concept of, if crypto succeeds, then everybody has control over their data. So why would people give up their data? Well, in the world of crypto, it's because all these companies would be issuing their equity to you, and you'd have a vested stake in giving up your information so that they would do well, because you own the equity in the companies, because you're a user of the company, right? And so now you have this kind of interesting battle where I think Facebook's just faced with the reality of a changing future, where either you need to own everything from top to bottom, or you need to give people real incentive to use your product in a way that makes you money, and that's by making them a partial owner in the product itself. And so that's why I think, you know, Facebook's super scared of. I think that's also why they tried to pivot to crypto, and why they tried to spin out DM as a layer 1 blockchain too, because I kind of see this future. They don't know how to quite get to the end state right now, but they're actually on the cutting edge of innovation here, which no other company is doing. So I have to give them props for that. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how it's playing out right now.
Maybe they should have just bought OpenSea. They're big enough
Possible.
to do it.
OpenSea by Meta.
Yeah, it is funny that they're, you know, you've seen their renderings of the metaverse, right? It's like these Disney character style, like polygon models of people, and it just looks like the person, and it's like, that is practically not where the product market fit is for the metaverse.
I don't want to be myself in the metaverse. I want to be someone else. Please, God.
People want to be couches and animals and shit.
Yeah.
No one's going, can I get a Disney character that looks exactly like me? Like, just all my flaws, please. So I think that's interesting as well. But
wait, hold on.
Yeah,
we need to ask Avi this question. Sorry, Avi. In the metaverse, would you change your eyes?
Oh my god.
Nah, I'm keeping them the way that they are.
I'm sorry. I love you.
My avatar would just be a raccoon. It's fine.
I was gonna say, are you Fu?
Fu.
Yeah.
Yeah, is Fu your all?
But okay,
yeah,
but
it's funny that all metaverse coins went to 0, and then Meta also went to 0 straight away.
Immediately after,
Yeah.
But Kobe, I think you make a good point. And who is that on Twitter? Like Lil Lambo Moon or Lil Moon Lambo does the best tweets of these clips from, like, I don't know where he finds them, but he's like, this is the metaverse Mark Zuckerberg doesn't want you to have. And they're just like the most ridiculous scenes he can find from like these different games. But I do think there's this element, and I think when Facebook or Meta, whatever you want to call it, first came out with like their demo of the metaverse, was people having a conference, like being in a conference room. Like, I'm not putting on my Oculus headset to sit in a conference room with a bunch of fucks.
Yeah, I think that they should.
Do you have an Oculus?
No, I have it at Valve. I have a Valve.
I think they need to realize that, like, their
brand.
target market for like that metaverse marketing should be the younger generation. Like, it shouldn't be like business centric, like conference stuff like that. Like, if they're gonna capture that target market in like 5 years or so, or like 5-10 years, then they should really be keying in on what the younger generation is doing. Like, I think I will probably, like, the TikTokers, like what they want to see in the metaverse is what they really should be focusing on, because like everybody in my age group doesn't use Facebook. Like, I don't know anybody my age who has used Facebook in like the last 5 years at all. It's like older people that are on there and like are getting targeted for ads every 2 seconds, and that's like really it.
That's a red flag if someone's like, hey, let's connect on Facebook, or like, hey, let's connect on LinkedIn. I'm like, it's absolutely
what? No,
not.
that's insane.
That's a no, dog, for me.
Yeah.
People still say
Have
that.
you guys
They're like, oh,
used
let's
any
connect
game?
on LinkedIn. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, have you guys used any games on VR headsets yet, or like done any of the social games yet? Oh, you gotta try it out.
I've only done Half-Life. Half-Life is fire. I like peed my pants. It's so scary.
It's such a weird experience. Like,
Scary.
all these competitive
I love
games,
it.
they have like these 12, 13, 14-year-olds in there. They're just like screaming at you the whole time, but they're screaming like very nice things. They're like, "Oh, dude, no, you can do it better. You could do it better. Just throw it like this or throw it like that." Like there's this one frisbee game called Echo VR where you can get in it and you're just like in a lobby with a bunch of other people, and I'm by far the oldest person in there. So I do think in some ways
How often do you do this?
I done it like once a month or something like that. Just like go in my little headset, go into the
hang out
metaverse and
with
try it
children.
out. Yeah, and then I hang out and with my 14-year-old VR friends. Like,
Are those like the new COD lobbies now? That's what I remember. The
yeah,
Wait,
except
Abby, you
they're
can
really
do us all
nice
a
and nobody's
favor.
cursing at you, which is
Yeah.
super weird.
Do us all a favor, just get him onto DeFi Kingdoms. We need some exit liquidity. Just sell them these play-to-earn games. Like, look, this frisbee shit we're doing. Are you earning money for this? No. Come over.
Start clicking.
Come over onto Avalanche.
Oh, wait. Also, send them over to Genesis Critters, the Roblox game, because the people, my critters people are not playing enough. I'll give them 70%. I'll change the economics. I'll give them a bigger percentage of the split.
All right, next
them
time I go in, I'll let them know. We should host one of these
do any of you-
podcasts in the metaverse.
Yo, if we're
Is
like
the
all
metaverse
VR,
just
that would be cool.
AI?
Yeah. Wait, Ansem, what's your avatar gonna be?
Afro Samurai.
Nice.
Definitely Afro Samurai. Or like Huey from the Boondocks. I don't know.
Oh, Boondocks.
Yeah.
I thought Boondocks was supposed to do like an NFT project a while ago.
Really? I would buy
Yeah.
that if they did. They did.
Yeah, I heard the creator of Boondocks is working on like some NFT thing.
A lot of NFT stuff that is supposed to happen ends up unwinding, getting cancelled, getting called off or something because of public backlash. So I think last year, there were a ton of gaming companies who would do the like sort of 1 week turnaround of, hey, we're going to do this with NFTs. And then 1 week later we take our environmental responsibility extremely seriously and we're going to cancel this. And clearly we got it wrong this time. That like sort of pattern seems to have happened very often in the last year or so. Why do you think normal people hate NFTs so much?
I think it's the environment narrative, right? Everybody just looks at NFTs and like, yo, it destroys the environment. Every time I look at all the quote tweets, that's just all it is. It's like, oh.
But it's always people with pronouns in their bios who post about that.
I think it's people seeing other people make money on something that they don't fundamentally understand really well, and so I think that currently a lot of people are in situations where they feel like they can't really progress, like by making more money. So it's hard for them to do that. So like whenever they see people making money on something that is like fringe or like may possibly be a scam, they immediately attach to something that will like say that that's not valid. And especially if it's a whole community of people that are doing that at the same time, it makes it really easy for them to just be like, oh, that is not good. I shouldn't do that. That's not for me. I think that's really what it is. I honestly don't think it's the environment. Like, I don't think that many people care about the environment.
I mean, the fact is people are tweeting about the environmental impact of NFTs while they're getting on their private jet.
Yeah, like, dude, you're cat. You're
like-
cat. Stop.
I'm like,
Yeah, it's just a weird thing. Like, crypto is so right-wing now in mainstream media. Like, everybody that has pronouns in their bio that's super left, they look at this and they go, oh, that's bad because people on the right like it. And you just have to throw up your arms and say it's not everybody in crypto, but I guess
And like Democrats are not helping with that narrative either, because there's so many. I feel like I see so many loud Democrats that are anti-crypto. I don't understand. That's one of the things I really do not understand in the past year, because a lot of the people who are so for like sharing wealth and like making it easily accessible for everybody to be on the same playing field, like that's what crypto and Web3 is like its main focus, its main goal is to do that, is to make it easily accessible for everybody.
yeah.
But it's just
cognitive
weird.
dissonance, right? And like, if you recall, Rashida Tlaib, who's like part of the gang, right? Like this super progressive group of women on the Hill. She put out this thing, I think like a year and a half ago, called the Stable Act, where basically it was like, hey, the only entities that should be allowed to issue stable coins are banks. and that's going to help with financial inclusion and marginalization. And I'm like,
how? Like how? Literally how?
have we looked at the history of banking and redlining? Like literally the reason there is financial exclusion is because you're going through these intermediaries that are like highly discriminatory in nature. So no, I don't think that's going to help at all. And then also last week, I don't know if people saw this, a group of Democrats in the House actually issued a letter to crypto miners demanding more information. And basically their claim was that Bitcoin mining is driving up electricity prices for consumers and causing environmental degradation. And I'm like, I'm sorry, if we want to talk about environmental degradation, let's talk about the largest polluter in the world, which is the US military. The US military accounts for an enormous amount of global emissions. So like instead of like what I don't understand, what I don't like about the narrative is we're cherry picking environmental issues. And by the way, Facebook's usage of energy goes up 40 to 50% a year, right? Anytime you're using an electronic device, you're running, right? Anytime you're doing anything on an electronic device, there's electricity flowing through a chip. There's electricity being used, right? So to me, it's like, it's this very, very, very specific type of cherry picking of issues, right, to drive a very specific agenda. I'm like, look, you can't pick and choose what type of energy you want people to be able to use. That doesn't make any sense. We don't have energy police. If you want to have Christmas lights, amazing. If you want to turn on all the lights in your house, amazing. Like, go ham.
I think at the end of the day, it's just binary for these people, right? It's any amount of energy is bad because I don't get crypto, so therefore it's useless, so any energy is bad. Right? Like, it doesn't matter if it uses like a third of the energy that it does. It's just, I think crypto's useless, so if it uses energy, that means it's bad.
Which is also why I think, but that's why I think the internal industry narrative where proof of stake blockchains attack Bitcoin's proof of work, that's a road to zero, right? Because eventually they will come for you, right? Eventually you will use too much energy. So it's a self-defeating narrative. And I just hate seeing people in the industry like piling onto it where they're like, we're the green blockchain. And I'm like, this is a self-defeating narrative because when they're done attacking every other blockchain, like who's left? You're never going to be green enough.
Yeah, 100%.
I do think crypto's got the ability to invoke powerful irony in that loads of gamers are complaining that Bitcoin mining, the energy usage has no purpose while they sit gaming all the time, which has no purpose. And it has Lizzie Warren simping for the banks. It's like, wait a second, we've invoked powerful irony here. In general, I think the NFT hate from like the general public or normies or whatever you want to call them is similar to what Z said. Like, I think when something becomes popular to hate, when it's socially acceptable to hate and dunk on, like people really like, they love that. That's like, it invokes so much human nature to pile on something, and there must be some envy that propagates round into conviction that everyone else must be wrong. And the narratives they pick up, I don't think they matter too much. They're sort of interchangeable, whether they're talking about the environment or money laundering or how it harms artists or how it's actually not a picture, it's a link to a picture on the blockchain and all this stuff. I think a lot of that, I think those are just the tools that people can deploy against a thing where it's popular to hate it. And a lot of it doesn't matter. Like the critical thinking behind it is actually irrelevant. If you break down the topics and say, well, this doesn't make sense for these reasons, they just pick another one, or they don't want to think critically. They want to participate in their social group and do the thing which is socially acceptable, which is to dunk on this technology or the people that like this technology or something. I think it's a shame. We're gonna have to rebrand NFTs like we did crypto to Web3. What are we going to call them?
Digital assets. That's what we call them. Digital assets.
Digital assets. It's like NFTs, but without the money laundering and the environment.
Exactly.
And
the white. Don't forget the white supremacists either.
Yeah, that was a recent one, wasn't it? Like, white supremacists are using crypto, and like, as long as it remains decentralized, they will continue to be able to use it. And I think it just needs reframing. Like, as long as it remains decentralized, anybody will remain able to use it. That's the point. And sure, there are people that that have horrendous worldviews that I don't agree with, and I'm sure everyone on this call doesn't agree with. But there are also people in parts of the world that have good worldviews who are persecuted, and they need a technology like this. Yep. So I don't know. It feels like it's gone into like the season where they throw everything at Bitcoin. It's like environment, terrorism, North Korea. I saw one today that said like North Korea funded its missile program with hacked Bitcoins or something. And it's just like, let's take all these socially...
But of course.
Yeah, they did their own NFT profile picture line and then used it to launch a missile, which landed in the sea just off the coast.
Oh, was that the rocket NFT picture line? You remember that? Budweiser rocket?
Actually...
Cum Rocket? Cum Rocket, that was just a front. But like, you just take all these things where like, society knows them as the bogeyman and attach Bitcoin to them, like Bitcoin enables this. It feels like it's that season at the moment.
I mean, I've been doing this for 8 years. This happens every year. I say the same thing every year. It's like, it's infuriating. At a certain point, I feel like I've given up a little bit. I'm just like, I can't fix stupid.
I feel like the HFSP, that wave was kind of a reaction against that. It's like, all right, guys, like, if you're not going to come in here and you're not going to get rich, just like have fun staying poor. I don't know what to tell you at this point.
It is really bad though, because like there's so much big money that is now realized that crypto is not going away and is now investing like heavily into it. And then it's like these people who could be benefiting from that, but they're intentionally avoiding it altogether. Like it really is like it's too big. I think it's like too big that's not gonna go away now, but some people are still like hanging on to the fact that it's a scam.
Yeah, I mean, with any emerging technology, you're gonna have a group of people that try to fight back against it. I kind of assume that in like 10, 15 years, they're gonna be the equivalents of the digital Luddites, where people just eschew technology and they say, okay, we don't want any tech. It's just gonna be that, but with crypto, right? And I mean, with any new technology, there's always gonna be a core group of people that hate it. I think right now it's like a massive group of people, and over time that group's gonna shrink as people capitulate into actually using it. And in 10, 15 years, when the majority of the world's using it, there's still going to be that small hateful group, and it's just it's a war of attrition, right? At the end of the day, because I think like thinking back to the original discussion, I think Z, you kind of nailed it. I just wasn't thinking about it in this way. It's that people are seeing something where a ton of people are making a ton of money. Their friends are making a ton of money. People are claiming that it's the future, and if it is the future, then that means that they didn't see the future, and that's really hard to accept. Right, that's really hard to accept. It's so much easier to say, well, this is a bubble, this is a scam, because otherwise it requires self-reflection and you admitting that there wasn't something, you didn't understand something, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think over time, more people are just going to come around to that understanding, because I think everybody here on this podcast has a vision of the future where crypto and the future are just intertwined. There's no way that the future exists where crypto doesn't, right? And we're going to get there, and people are going to come with us. But along the way, there's going to be a lot of fighting, because most people aren't going to get it, and they don't want it to be true. A lot of people, they just don't want that to be true.
But I think there's also a bigger shift that's happening, and it's not just crypto. It's also, I think, part of cancel culture. Like, the idea of credibility and what gives people credibility is changing, right? It used to be that academic institutions and media outlets and governments had credibility. But over the last 3 years, we've seen laid bare like the sheer and utter incompetence of many of the institutions in our world. They're just not very good at what they do. And because of the internet and the speed at which information can now travel, because of all of these like documents that have been released, because of this increased transparency and people being able to gather and communicate and build things collectively online, I think there is this fundamental power struggle. Like, imagine you went to college, you spent your whole life working your way up the corporate ladder, you're a partner at Goldman Sachs or an MD, whatever they call it, and there's some 20-year-old selling crypto dick butts on the internet who just made more than you've made in your entire career. Like, and that's one very specific example. But I do think like people who are in positions of perceived authority, who invested a lot of time and energy trying to like get to this point, they see all of these different forces, whether it's the rise of influencer culture, Substack culture, like these very unique subcultures, right? for them, it's incredibly frustrating because they no longer have credibility. And that's something so many people took for granted. And now that it's been laid bare that like none of these institutions know what they're doing, nobody knows what's going on. Like these people don't have credibility. They're not the authority. I think that like when your entire identity is attached to that, like where you went to school, where you work, the degrees you have, the credentials you have, right, where you work, when that is your identity, which for so many people it is, something like this is extremely upsetting because it threatens to upend your entire sense of self-worth and this whole world that you've spent, 40, 50 years of your career, like trying to get a foothold in, and that's now all slipping away from you. Like that's extremely upsetting.
Yeah, I think, Melanie, you made a comment before about, it's a lot of the pronouns in the bio people. I've personally have no problems with pronouns in bio. I think people should do whatever they want, whatever makes them happy. They should love whoever they want, as long as they're not hurting someone. You go. I'm like personally actually very left wing, left center, I think, like particularly on social issues. But I think that it is so many pronouns people because they're all so left, and crypto has become a politicized issue, and the left typically trusts the government a lot more than the right. The right wants, smaller local government, the left wants bigger government. So it would make sense that crypto as a thing that is, the government does not control, left and Dems would like less. The thing I find most interesting is if you, instead of thinking about it from the lens of like left and right, if you think about it from the lens of like independent mindedness or not, because I think that if you look at the people who herd into the anti-crypto narrative, they're often not left by choice. They're left accidentally. They're left through the people they grow up and hang around with, or like environmentally. They're not left by choice where they've thought critically about all the issues and said, I decide that I end up here. Because people that do that, the independent-minded people that go through that, often conclude that the far left and the far right are like wrong on a lot of stuff. And I have noticed that the people who are most independent-minded often come to the conclusion that crypto is good and not, all these other things. And actually that there are very few independent-minded people that conclude the opposite. And what's most interesting to me is when those independent-minded people do conclude the opposite, they normally have really good points, and those are the like really interesting discussions, but it is very rarely the money laundering environment, the recycled FUD. So I think that's a much more useful lens to look at things down. And that's why you do see some like pronouns people who are very pro crypto in the crypto community.
Yeah. And look,
because
sorry, I
they're
just
the independent minded ones.
Let me just say also like that the pronoun thing is not a slight. I think, people should identify how they want. No, and fully supportive of like this needs to be inclusive and respectful. Like that is the basis on which we should all operate. So I take no issue with that. What I take issue with, right, is and this doesn't happen so much in the crypto space, it's more outside of the crypto space. There are these people who preach an ideology of inclusion, but they only want to include people who share their very narrow, very specific worldview. And I think, again, if you're preaching tolerance and acceptance, yet you want to cancel anyone who doesn't share your worldview, right? That's what I take issue with. Particularly what we're seeing right around like this insane amount of cancel culture where people are unable to engage in any sort of constructive critical dialogue with anyone who has a worldview different than theirs. That's what I take issue with. Like there are certain topics I'm just not going to engage on because I fundamentally believe like there is no dialogue to be had. For example, people should be free to do whatever they want, right? We have certain rights that are inalienable and should be defended. But I take issue with is like in preaching a culture of tolerance, but then at the same time being incredibly intolerant, like A, that's extremely hypocritical, but also B, like you can't simply shut down or cancel people or remove their access to systems just because you don't like their perspective. That's the whole point of crypto. Like crypto doesn't care who, it doesn't care if you're a dog, it doesn't care if you're a cat, it doesn't matter. It doesn't care who you are, right? That's the whole point, is we are building systems and tools that are uncensorable, that anyone can use. People are going to use them for positive things. Maybe people use them for nefarious things. But I think we all agree that net censorship resistance, right, is a very important, valuable attribute, right? Whether that's GitHub blocking developers who reside in Iran or have an Iranian ISP from earning money on GitHub, or even contributing to or having a GitHub repo, like that's censorship, right? To other types of censorship we're seeing where people are like, oh, if you believe X, then you shouldn't have the right to use Twitter. You shouldn't have the right to publish on certain media platforms, right? I think, again, society like functions best when we have people with different perspectives and we're able to, we don't have to agree. I don't agree with a lot of people on a lot of things, but I don't feel the need to constantly be outraged. Like this outrage culture is what I find so perplexing. It's like there's so many things we could be doing that are positive and move humanity forward, but instead we're just like screaming at each other about these random things that are really, in many instances, like not that consequential. Why do we feel the need to engage in this constant like canceling on every side? I'm just like, it's stop.
My mind is broken.
The NFT one specifically is quite funny, because on NFTs, like there's a narrative, you know, the anti-NFTers, they say we're trying to protect people from the scams in NFTs, but then the people in NFTs, they're like, I hope they die, NFT bro, die. It's like, wait, I thought you wanted to protect these people. You want them to die too? They're the same people. As soon as you're in NFTs, you're no longer a human being, but they're trying to protect people from the NFT scams. So like, someone's being scammed, but you want them to die. The dehumanizing element of it makes it really weird to me, and it just all of a sudden becomes like, this is bad faith. Sorry, Avi, you were saying something.
Oh yeah, no, I was just saying that my mind is broken, so I always relate everything back to crypto, and I think it's kind of interesting, right? Because you see all these microcosms play out in crypto, because crypto is just this one small like ecosystem and economics unit that's constantly iterating and constantly trying a bunch of different experiments. And so, you know, when Melton asks like, well, why does tribalism exist? It's like, well, you can ask that same question about crypto, and then like, what conclusions does that lead you to after you think through what's happening in the crypto sphere? And so I think if I were to say this like succinctly, it would be that a bunch of people in crypto, what they do is they come up with these different ideas, and they cling very, very, very closely to those ideas, because those ideas have brought them happiness, or have brought them riches, or have brought them wealth. In the same way that people cling very tightly to their ideas about politics or religion, I think it's a little different. In that case, it brings people community, and it brings people a sense of purpose, and it makes them happy, right? And so that's why people cling to those ideas and form these tight-knit tribal groups. Now, maybe we can look at crypto to say, well, what breaks that, right? When have you seen somebody that held on to an ideology that said, wait a second, I don't believe in this ideology anymore. This doesn't work for me. Well, I've seen it happen the most when they aren't getting rich on it, but they're seeing other people getting rich on something else. And they're going, oh man, like I'm just holding this bag and it's not working. And was I wrong about this? Should I have done something else? Should I go somewhere else? And, you know, I was a Solana maxi, and now I'm buying Luna because Luna's going up and Solana's going down. And so I'm kind of wondering if that happens over time in our political system, in our internet, where I think what you're seeing is a lot of people that they get into these rage groups, they get into these mobs, and over time, what it's doing is it's actually making people very upset and very depressed in a long period, right? You're sitting there and you're constantly triggering your anger receptors, you're constantly getting mad about something, you're constantly attacking people, and at the end of 2, 3, 5, 6, 10 years from now, I'd find it very weird if these people are actually very happy. And so if they're sitting there, maybe that's what causes a self-reflection. And what I'm hoping is that we've swung so far to the side of internet outrage that what we're going hopefully back to, after people have burned out their anger receptors, to a period where people say, okay, well, maybe I don't necessarily have to believe in this because it's not actually making me happy. And I think a lot of the things that you were talking about, Kobe, which is that people tend to have these ideas because they're around other people that have these ideas. That's the sole reason that they have these ideas, not because they actually thought about it. And I find whenever you have ideas like that and they get challenged, you get very upset, because what you've realized is that you haven't actually thought about them. But ideas are constantly being presented to you wherever you go. So if your ideas are constantly being challenged and you're constantly feeling upset, I think at some point what you do is you start to actually think about those ideas. So that's kind of my lessons that I've drawn from crypto of how this might end. Just spitballing a little bit, but I do find it hard pressed, like this area of cancel culture. I think we're already reaching the tail end in many ways. Like I think the peak is sort of past us from my perspective, because I just don't see the drive for people to do this anymore as in the same way. Like there are so many more people that are fighting back because it's making them upset.
Yeah, canceling the cancelers now.
Well, look, and to be fair, I think some of the issues that get raised are very valid and relevant conversations we need to be having, but there's nuance in how to have those conversations, and I think that nuance just is, well, to be fair, it's hard to have any sort of nuanced conversation on the internet.
That's true.
280
characters. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too easy when you're anonymous too, right? I mean, you get to just say whatever. Actually, Kobe, has that changed for you at all when you've like gone from like fully anon to pseudo-anon? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah. So like it was like a nice safety blanket for me before. Like I got to write as not as a pseudonym, because I think a pseudonym is just you but with a different name, isn't it? But more as like a heteronym, where I invented a personality for this entity or human idea that was not me, but I could embody it and write as though I was this like character. So Kobe was this, had different opinions to me on stuff and would respond to things differently than what I would personally. And it was a nice outlet, and it allowed me to, create some character and like enjoy this creative writing process. And when it was like no one knew who I was, or it was at least difficult to find out who I was, and I didn't have a podcast with my face on it, I could write things where I wouldn't say that, and I would feel more comfortable saying something that was a little bit controversial or outrageous or whatever. And then I found in like my real life, like Kobe thoughts would like leak into my head in real life. So I'd be having a conversation with someone and they'd say something and I'd get like a retort in my head, and I was like, wait, I can't say that in real life. I'm going to get like punched. Like it's not, this only works on the internet behind a mask. And then over time, like as I became public and stuff, I just, like it's weird to write as a character when people think it's you, not because I think the character is bad, but just because I don't feel like I can 100% defend everything it says. So I've just like over time it's sort of blended. I think writing as a heteronym is actually a very good mental exercise, especially if like your heteronym does not hold the same views as you, so you can like mentally explore alternative viewpoints and try and argue pro viewpoints that you don't hold. But we're getting into like some weird Fernando Pessoa like lifetime therapy, like self-therapy stuff. I think is interesting, but I don't think the people that are watching are going to think it's interesting. So maybe another time.
Yeah, fair enough.
But on pseudonyms, Sifu.
Yeah, it's time to Sifu.
Yo.
Although Funds of Sifu is one of the best memes that's come out of like CT since Not Gonna Make It, maybe.
Easily.
Yeah, that's so good. I love the one where it's Peter Parker with the glasses and it's like, funds are Safu. And then he's like, wait, no, funds are Sifu.
So I'll start the conversation. Maybe it's controversial place to start or something, but obviously he has a extremely he's like convicted criminal multiple times. I don't know.
I think.
The credit card fraud stuff was a long time ago, 20 years ago or something. Obviously was involved with like one of the co-founders of Quadriga or whatever it's called, Quadriga, which has a uncertain, like strange things happen. People lost money. It's not not something that you'd want on your CV necessarily, your resume. And then has been doing this job anonymously or pseudonymously for Wonderland. And in many ways, it seems like irresponsible to have someone with that background running a $500 million treasury. on the other hand, no one in Wonderland lost any money. Like as far as we know, nothing was stolen. Like no rug happened. Blah blah blah. So I think there's an interesting topic on like rehabilitation. Should these people be allowed to like do crypto jobs pseudonymously? Maybe they shouldn't be the CFO with direct access to $500 million, or not. Like I don't really know how to think about stuff like that.
I feel like it is very complex. I guess because in crypto we have so many anon founders, like anon devs, like anons all over the place. So I think kind of the question is, if you're okay with an anon founder, anon dev, like running whatever protocol, then like if you're okay with that, you kind of assume that their background doesn't matter, like unless proven otherwise. And I think once it is proven otherwise that they were a bad actor and before, then it's obviously a different situation. But I do think you can't really say that situations like that will never happen if you're going to be okay with anonymity throughout the space. So I think it's interesting. I really don't know. I don't have a strong opinion.
I mean, I think it's actually quite simple, right? So number one, Daniele knew, right, who Xerox Sifu was, and he knew the past, right? And knowing all of that, still felt comfortable with a single signature, like, for the funds. Like, it's not that hard to set up a multi-sig. So many projects use a multi-sig. Just use a multi-sig. Like, it's yeah. I don't understand. Like, in my mind, I'm like, we have the technology. We have the technology. We built it. It fucking works. We use it in almost every other protocol, DAO, and Treasury. Like, just why? Like, it's nonsense. It's like, why? It's so nonsensical. Because in this instance, right, do I agree that people should be given second chances? Yes, right? Like, again, like, I don't think that we should cancel Sifu and be like, no, you don't have the right to do things in this space because you were affiliated with Quadriga. Do I think that we should put him in a situation where he's the sole person who's responsible for the public's money? Like, probably not. We did that before. It didn't really go great. So it's like we literally have the tools. We have the technology. We use it every day. Why would you just not? What? I don't understand. It's like the solution is so simple. And I feel like so much of it was just like, just reckless for no reason, right? It's just like needlessly reckless. And I think, again, that's the issue, is like, knowing all of these things, you still chose to go about it this way when there were so many alternatives.
Yeah, I think that's
maybe I'm being simplistic. Maybe I'm being simplistic. But it's
Well,
like,
do you think
we have the technology, guys. Like, we got it.
But you don't think he should have been excluded, like, in full from the project? Just the multi-sig part?
I don't know. Like, I have a hard time saying, like, I don't know enough about the Quadriga case. I don't know this person. I don't know. I don't have, like, really strong feelings. I wasn't involved with it in any way. My biggest gripe was just, like, we literally built this technology for this very specific, like, this is literally what we fucking spent the last 4 years building. Like, what?
One bad actor shouldn't compromise the system. Yeah, so it just, that felt really ridiculous to me. I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah, I think if you think about it from a user perspective, it's like, would you want CFO to be the CFO? And I imagine there'd be a vote with like some ratio of answers for that. And then if there was a different vote, it was like, do you want him to have unilateral control of the money? It would have a different ratio. They might both end up with no, but I think there'd be like one would be almost 100% no, and the other would be at least some yes voters.
But the question is, Kobe, how high are the yields? If the yields are high enough, we'll say
this
yes
is
to
also
anything.
true.
Yeah, I mean,
this is also true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if he does an amazing job and he cannot steal the money, like, I don't see the problem with him operating in public if, people are able to withdraw and he doesn't have unilateral control of the money. I personally wouldn't want to, invest in that, but at least you can make the choice. I think it's weird that Danny knew and didn't feel the need to share, but at the point he found out, he might have also gone like, okay, well, if I share this now, this whole thing dumps. So you're in sort of a lose-lose situation when you get to there. Depends when he knew, I guess.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it's up to the people, right? I mean, if it was transparent and they knew who this guy was and they were like, all right, that's fine. Like, we trust this guy enough to let him do it because we think he's going to crush it, then that's fine. But the hiding it is definitely bad.
Wait, so you think Sifu should not have had the right to pseudonymity?
I actually think the answer to that is yes. I think if somebody has done things that the public, I think there should be at least some public disclosures around people if they've done things in the past that people would characterize as like bad at a large scale, right? I don't know exactly, what this guy did. I didn't read super deep into it, but I think stepping back, like more generally, like if you've embezzled somewhere and you're running a DeFi project, you probably need to disclose that, to the people. I don't think it's particularly fair to not have any information about the people that are running the project. That being said, like, look, like people are free to choose whatever they want to do. If they see a project that they like that has anonymous founders and they want to bake in the chance that there's like a 10% chance that this guy's a serial rugger, then they can do that. I do think that as an industry, it's better if there's at least some information about large protocol developers and people that are running large protocols. I think that otherwise you get into these types of situations where it just is very easy to cast stones, right? And then it harms the industry at large. But yeah, I don't really have a well-formed take on this, to be honest.
Would you sell Bitcoin if it turned out that Satoshi was like Sifu?
Oh my god.
Because I think it's a good question from Malcolm, and it's a hard question to answer as well. In this specific case, there is obviously a different level of public trust and thus valuation when the identity of the CFO is known and not known, which creates a huge downside risk for investors. So it's just how much you care about investor risk, I think. If he'd stayed anonymous forever and had perfect OPSEC and anonymity, then you potentially don't have that downside, but you always know you're incurring it. Because from a personal standpoint, I think everybody has the right to anonymity and privacy, and they should build products that do not require human beings to trust any single one person.
Yeah.
In this case, obviously, he had unilateral control of a thing, so I think users probably have some right to information, but
I want to fundamentally I want to push back here, right? So the whole conversation we've been having is about Bitcoin is censorship resistant money, right? And the whole point of the systems we're building is that they cannot be exclusionary, right? It's software clients, it's networks, right? They're not exclusionary by nature. And so I think, again, we're literally building technology that obviates the need for trust, right? In this instance.
Not in this case, though.
Right. In this case, it was, they opted to not do that, right? But again, the whole point of this is, right, that you can't cancel a protocol, right? And people are going to make individual decisions based on their comfort level. And obviously, certainly, I think from an institutional investor perspective, you're not going to associate with a project most likely that doesn't have known founders, right? Just because it creates all sorts of risk that could potentially be really reputationally damaging and put capital at risk and make you bad fiduciary, et cetera. List goes on. But I think generally the whole objective of what we're building in this industry, and one of the things I just feel really strongly about, is we're giving people the right to choice, and we're giving people tools that enable and facilitate us to build financial tools and financial infrastructure that doesn't require trust and also cannot enable censorship, financial censorship, right? That's the whole point. I think if we get to the point where we start censoring people, then how is what we're building better than the existing system we have, which financial violence is the most prevalent form of violence in our world today. The act of excluding people based on their race, their gender, their religious affiliation, their tribal affiliation, which is what we've been doing for centuries in different forms and continue to do to this day. Like, that is the basis of so much harm in our world today. So I don't want to replicate that in crypto. I don't agree with any of this, right? Like, I'm not absolving Sifu of responsibility, but if that had never come out, would people have cared? No. Also, does it matter that much? Like, the fact that he had custody of the funds, yes, that mattered, but we're literally building systems to help us not be in situations like that. So I take issue with that. I do think it's important that we preserve people's right to pseudonymity, and that I think a lot more protocol founders in the future will choose to be pseudonymous.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you just said. I think in summary, my thoughts are, if you can build trustless systems that don't require you to put trust in any single person, then anyone can be pseudonymous. Like, it's people deserve their privacy, and the greatest contribution to our industry was done by an anonymous person who's managed to remain anonymous until now, unless it's Craig. But I think consensus is it's probably not. If you're giving someone your money, then you probably deserve to like have some information about them if they're demanding trust of you. If I'm handing my money over and it's literally not my keys anymore, I personally want to know who I'm giving my money to, and I think investors have some right to information if the other person is requesting trust. In a trustless system, I totally agree. I've got money in things that I've got multi-sig of some anons, some non-anons. And I don't mind about the fact that there are some anonymous people there, because I don't have to give them my money and trust them with that money. Maybe my thoughts are just pseudonyms are fine, but people shouldn't hand over their money to anonymous people with no way of getting their money back.
But the thing is, it wasn't an issue until people realized, like, A, it wasn't multi-sig, and B, who this anonymous person was. But again, like, there's also, like, the issue here is people don't want to take personal responsibility for things either. Like, everyone has the ability to look at the smart contracts that they're throwing money into. And the issue is people don't. And then again, we're like, oh, like, we don't need all this regulation, we have smart contracts. But then the minute, it's like the Titan thing with Mark Cuban, where he's like, DeFi needs to be regulated. And I'm like, literally a week ago, you were praising DeFi. I'm like, you can't have it both ways. And I feel like a lot of this is people trying to have it both ways. Like, decide what side you're on. Decide what it is you actually stand for, and take some fucking personal responsibility. Like, people in this industry don't take zero personal responsibility for anything. And then when something bad, they do zero due diligence. And then when something bad happens, they're like, oh, I got scammed. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't have put your entire net worth into an unaudited smart contract run by a bunch of ape avatars on the internet probably then. Like, that's probably not the right investment for you to be making, right? So I think that people are trying to have it both ways, and it doesn't work. And we're our own worst enemy in this, and it drives me crazy. Like, if you don't want to be in that situation, then don't put your money in a fucking smart contract that you don't understand. It's like not that hard. I'm sorry, but like, I get really frustrated because people want to hold other people accountable for their own shitty decision making. Like, what are we doing here? Then what's the point?
That is true. One thing I will say is that most people can't read smart contracts, though. Like, I
thought you were just gonna end at read.
No,
most people can't read.
Yeah, most people can't read. Also, like, I tweet all the time. I tell people, like, read docs, like test out new things, and a lot of people are just like, no, I don't want to read at all, really. So I think it's like, I do think you're right in the fact that people should take responsibility. Like, okay, if you know that you don't understand what you're putting your money into, then yes, you have to be aware that you fully do not understand it. But I will say that it's like, a lot of people are not gonna read the smart contracts.
Which is fine, Z. But then also, like, when bad things happen, right? Don't be surprised, right? And even if you did read the smart contract, and again, I think this is like, there's risk inherent in everything we're doing, and this is a very specific type of risk. And again, the issue here is there were risks that were taken that they simply didn't need to be taken. And in the context of what Danny knew, to continue to allow that risk to persist, in my view, like, as the leader of protocol, is kind of unconscionable, right? Like, you have an obligation to your community to do better, like implement a multi-sig. we have the technology.
100%,
So
yeah.
I think that I just keep going back. We have the technology, guys. It's literally what we've been doing.
At the end, I'm gonna in the edit, I'm just gonna loop Mel. I'm going, we have the technology, multi-sig for like the next 10 minutes.
That'd be so good.
Oh my god.
But it's mind-boggling. But I do take issue with this because again, it kind of ties into this cancel culture situation where like in crypto especially, like the mob is so quick to cancel for very like specific small things, and I'm like, but you chose to do this. You chose to put billions of dollars of your own capital into this thing, knowing the things you know. Like, it's not like the code is hidden. Like, this is all open. You knew. And so, again, it's like, where does the responsibility lie in that instance? Like, do I think what was done was unnecessarily reckless? Absolutely, yes. Do I think all of the people who put a bunch of their capital into this and then were mad about it are absolutely reckless? Also, yes, right?
I think it gets.
I do think society's a little bit better with some guardrails, though. I think that's where I fall out on it. Is that if you just let people get scammed over and over and over, and people will, like, people are happy to be scammed over and over and over. They're happy to throw away their money, and so on some level, I think society needs some guardrails. I guess the question is like, where do you put those guardrails? Are they soft? Are they hard? And I think I definitely agree with you for the like 99%, which is that like people have to take personal responsibility, especially in crypto, which is a crazy wild experiment. If you can't read a smart contract, then you just have to know that and maybe not ape into things. I mean, like, I aped into Eminence when it first came out, and then I just got auto-rugged immediately. And I remember there was no UI. You had to like write to the contract, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a fun learning experience for me. And not once did I think, well, why is there no UI? Maybe because it's not ready yet. And so ended up just losing all my money immediately in that.
Hey, that was lesson one.
Yeah, lesson one, exactly. Like, take some personal responsibility. You know, you walk away, and I'm happy I got rugged. Got a nice little NFT for it. Yeah. But yeah, I do think on some level, like you do need some guardrails. I think in like a functional society, I just don't know exactly where to put them. Right? Is a guardrail like on your website be like, look, this is an anonymous project, like fucking click this to say that you know the risks, or is a guardrail that you actually like require people to do things, right?
Right, but then we get back to the state we have today, which is like you have to have a regulator and a surveillance apparatus, and then like you're re-centralizing power because there's now a group of people who get to decide what passes and doesn't, right? So again, I think the question is, and like the whole point is, do we use technology to provide the guardrails, right? Or do we use institutions to do that? And I think, again, where I fall on that is let's try to use technology and like the tools we're building in real time to provide those guardrails, as opposed to relying on humans who are biased, right, and who are prone to like lobbying and becoming captive to special interests. That's why we have the world we live in today. Is like what started out as a good idea was corrupted over time by money and power.
Sure,
and I don't want to replicate that system. Then like, why are we here? Then let's just fucking quit, right, and just do this, because that's the end result, unfortunately.
I do think my opinion changes in a bull market, because, you know, if you asked me 2 years ago, I would say that the accredited investor laws are draconian and unnecessarily overreaching and parental. And I think they're a cause for or contribute to massive inequality, and they've certainly made crypto less fair to retail participants in the last few years. But now, if you ask me now, I would tell you that the majority of the crypto community is currently so dumb that they make the accredited investor laws look liberal. So I get caught up in it a little bit, where I'm like, people did what? Oh my god. Whereas like I think on a sober day, when, you know, not like normal people not losing loads of money all the time, I would have like been with the former. So I think it's really hard, and I think if you want technology to be the guardrail, we're a long way from it being safe for normal people, and you have to accept a lot more financial loss of regular people along the way. But then if you're accepting institutions, maybe we're like thousands of years down the line of failing anyway, so who knows. Should we talk about the market going up?
Finally, dude. Jesus.
Wait, can we talk about, is decorrelation finally here?
I don't know.
From
Didn't
macro
it like
or
decorrelate? But
Yeah, decorrelation from macro.
I don't know because I never
Macro
look
down,
at
crypto
anything
up.
else.
What's T?
Is macro down though?
Yeah, I mean that
I
was
never- I don't
actually
ever look at it.
Bitcoin finally broke 40K on the day where the S&P was down 1%, and Bitcoin just like punched right through. And it's normally like, I mean, I've just noticed in these pockets, in these situations, whenever you get a decoupling where it's just complete opposite and Bitcoin just punches through and it shows a lot of strength, that's normally the start of at least a short-term trend. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this extend. I mean, I'm still of the opinion that the range is 70K to 30K, and if you're bearish at low 30s, like there's something wrong with you, and if you're bullish at high 60s, there's something wrong with you. I mean, that's just the way that I think about it.
Sounds good.
I
to
think
me.
there's something wrong with us, like, period. We're in crypto. There's something wrong with us, period.
Agree with that.
Yeah, we recorded the last episode at the absolute bottom.
Yeah,
Dang, did we?
we bottom ticked it.
Yeah.
Let's keep
Yeah,
that
and as we
energy going.
Yeah.
As we started recording this one, it started going up. But we're currently trapped in a weird range where it just keeps like stopping people out in either direction. Maybe max pain is we just go sideways in this like $400, $500 range for the next few weeks. Just you got to flip a coin to know which way it's gonna stop people.
Yeah. It's so tight. I like on the low time frames. It's actually looks rigged. Like, dude, how is this possible?
Yeah, this one's actually on Bitcoin. This one looks a little bit better. On Ethereum, it just keeps going exactly back into the same range. It's interesting because in the previous like crashes, even though in the May to July crash, while it took a similar amount of time as this crash, the majority of the move happened very quickly in the previous one, and then it just ranged between the bottom of the crash and like 40K from June, July, whereas this one was very different. It was just a ranging like sideways down, range extension, like broke out of that range and then just trended down steadily over time. So it felt like a really different price action than it's been in a few years. What do you think that means for Q1, Q2?
I mean, retail is gone, man. Like you can just see it. The retail is just gone. There's nobody getting liquidated. There are no crazy flash wicks down. Cardano's not pumping. Like nobody's here, right? And so it's just a battle between these two institutional players, like multiple institutional players coming in, buying, selling, getting overpowered. Like some retail buying the dips, and I think what we need is Bitcoin to trade like 50, 55, 60 and see retail start flooding back in, see Google Trends start going up, people start panic selling their NFTs for ETH, and then maybe we get a bull run. But my base case for this year has just been we've probably, I think, peak retail is in the past. I don't know if we'll ever get like the same sort of crazy cultural moment that we had in 2017 or even 2021 where everybody is just looking at crypto, where everybody is looking at it like, holy shit, what is this thing doing? Because basically everybody's heard about it at this point, right? And so you're not going to have this massive cultural awakening. I think it's just going to be a little bit more slow. It's going to be a little bit more gradual. The people that are left to be, I guess, converted to crypto, it's going to take a little bit longer for them all to come in, and it's going to be more of a trickle than a waterfall. That's at least my take on it. I'm bullish here, by the way. I think we're going a lot higher, but I think that it's just going to be a little slower.
I think
market.
your thesis, I think, applies to Bitcoin and ETH. I think there is a lot of sector rotation still where people have a lot of gains in alts, and they're like, now that these things have run up, right, they're looking for the next thing that's going to run. So I think within Bitcoin and ETH, like, yes, that has largely been exhausted. Also, there's so many channels through which to access Bitcoin and ETH, like structured products, which is our business, right, institutional desks, retail apps. Like, it's very easy to access Bitcoin and Ether in a variety of product constructions that fit into any investor's sort of portfolio in a very easy way. I think for the longer tail of crypto assets, right, that make up like the other 40% of the market, there's still a lot of volatility to be had. I think there's still a lot of profits to be made. And I think the retail that is there is going to trade in that longer tail because there's sort of chasing, right, the next narrative cycle. And so I think that's where a lot of the turnover is going to be and a lot of the activity is going to be, because that's where the opportunity still is, right? For Bitcoin to do 10x from here, like, hard, but for some small cap, right, random coin to do that, have much higher opportunities. So I do think there's like this rotation that happens every cycle, and that rotation will still happen. And I think we'll see retail trade that long tail.
I'm with you. I just don't think it's going to be nuts. Like, I don't think that we're going to see dog coins going 30x. I don't think that
was so crazy.
Yeah, that was nuts. I just don't think we're going to see that level, but I totally agree with everything that you said, like on a smaller scale than I think what it was in 2021 is all I'm trying to say.
When you say peak retail is behind you, you mean in on like for 2022 type time frame, or you mean like 2028 time frame? You don't think it'll ever get as
I mean 2028. I think that like the level of insanity that we saw for the first 2 quarters of 2021, we're probably not going to see for like another 3-4 years. It would be my guess.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting view. I spoke to a bunch of people recently. I try and talk to like people who are definitely not in crypto and don't know anything about it every now and again. So I try and understand what their view is and how they're thinking about crypto. I spoke to a lot of people whose general opinion is, I thought it was a pyramid scheme until last year, where this person that I trust managed to buy 1 Bitcoin a couple of years ago and they made some money. And I've always viewed these huge like bubble events as like a massive onboarding of a new group of promoters, and the impact of that promotion happens twofold. It happens immediately. I'm doing this thing now. You should get in with me, or we're going to make a bunch of money. And then there's the second wave of people who went, I'm not going to do that with you. But then they watched them actually make some money and they go, okay, next time I will do that. And they learn how to onboard into the ecosystem and stuff. And I think a lot of these people end up as like all-time high breakout buyers, where a bunch of people that learned about crypto in 2017 bought in 2020 at the Bitcoin all-time high breakout because they were like, oh, it's happening again. I've got to get in now because it's going to go, up massively. So I think these mass attention events have a bunch of people learn about it and they go, okay, I wasn't positioned well, but if the market ever turns up again, I will definitely be positioned correctly this time. I've set up my accounts now, blah, blah, blah. Because I thought in 2017, that's got to be it. That's got to be the peak. And then 2021, I was like, okay, no, actually, all those people are now just like dry powder on the sideline waiting for them to relearn about it again and go, shit, I'm not missing it this time. And I think the narrative can change very quickly. If you're at all-time highs, all of a sudden there's all these people who are like maybe in the wrong coins, or have heard about it but not put much money in, or it's got more like socially acceptable to them, or less scary, or less like a pyramid selling thing, that will be willing to jump in. My main fear is that retail don't buy big coins anymore. So retail have also learned about like running down the risk tail and going, okay, which coin do I buy if I want the big returns? Like the retail's not buying Bitcoin and Ethereum no more. They're going to buy some weird stuff. I think that's my main concern for the next sort of 4, 5, 6 years. But
it's not just in crypto. I think this also applies to equities in a certain way. Like if we think about the impact Wall Street Bets has had on just investing culture generally, right? People are hunting for opportunities like to make it. And so I do think just generally like the whole culture of investing has shifted. And while in a certain way, like the scale is quite small, in some of these smaller assets, it can really materially move the needle. So I think just generally the dynamics of markets have shifted fundamentally as a result of investing as a new form of entertainment. It's like now in the cultural zeitgeist. I don't know. Maybe that's a weird view, but.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Kobe said about how like people who join their first cycle don't really know what they're doing, but then they'll come back next cycle and figure it out. Because that basically was me in 2017. I just like held a lot of stuff basically to like zero in 2018, and then like in late 2020, I was like, oh, this is happening again. I know I like have a general idea of what the alt cycles are going to look like. I know Bitcoin is still not at all-time highs, and other stuff is going crazy. So for me, that was like, okay, well, stuff is coming back again. So I definitely agree with that. Right now, what I've been saying this cycle, I think that crypto has typically been overweight speculators and like underweight builders. And I think that is shifting pretty quickly, like right now. I think that I think the Web3 moniker for crypto is good because people see it as like a valid career path now. Like I've had a lot more people reaching out to me, be like, oh, I want to work in Web3. Like I heard that there's cool stuff people are doing. Like really smart people that are trying to get involved and not just asking what's Shiba Inu Unlimited, like what's the next dog coin. Like, so I think from that perspective, it's different, which is kind of why I'm more positive on like not a multi-year bear like the one that we had in 2018, 2019, where everything was just like very low volume, like not much trading. Yeah. I think there's like a lot of money in crypto that is really not gonna leave crypto, and I think there's still a lot of external people, not only money but also talent and like mind share that is now interested in crypto and is joining crypto.
I will say the stuff people are building, the pitches I'm getting, the things I'm seeing, it makes me super optimistic. Just like the creativity, the ambition that people are building with, it's incredibly inspiring. I do think that a lot of people who are kind of on the sidelines got really into crypto over the last year, maybe because they're trading dog coins or getting into NFTs, like whatever it is. But now they're building things in this space. They're moving their focus to building in Web3. Like just earlier today, I was someone in the creative industry who's focusing all of his future endeavors on like building in this space instead of building in the traditional like A&R space. So I do think there are a lot of people coming into the space who are building really interesting things, not just as a way to monetize, but they're actually like fundamentally excited about and optimistic about and like encouraged by what is possible with these tools. So I'm extremely optimistic. Now, will that materialize into like number go up? Not immediately, but I think longer term, like the trajectory is very positive. Valuations have also come down, so I'm happy about that. Yay.
That part's
Yay.
fantastic. I will say though, like when I said peak retail, I think it's mainly because of everything that you guys are just saying, where it's just so socially acceptable to be in crypto, right? Like anybody can come build in crypto, anybody can come in, buy crypto, and they're not looked at as weird anymore. If you're a software dev at a trading firm or a software dev at like a FANG, you're like, oh, sick, like I can go join crypto, and people will say, good job, man, great decision, crypto's where it's at. And that's just become part of our cultural consciousness now, which is why I think that, I mean, Bitcoin can still, like, I personally think here Bitcoin's going higher. I still think altcoin can rip. I'm not calling for a bear when I say peak retail. What I'm saying is that I don't think that we're going to get everybody's eyes focused on crypto at the exact same time, because it's just more of a slow bleed into the crypto industry of people coming in at their leisure. I think if Bitcoin trades 60K from here, everybody's going to be, oh, wow, Bitcoin's doing that thing again where it goes up. But there's not going to be that feeling of, oh my God, like this is going to go to $500 million. This is where it's at. Everybody needs to be in crypto. Everybody's rushing in. I don't think there's going to be that moment, because I think so many people are already all in. And I think a lot of people are already trickling in, and it's just going to be more of an ebb and flow than a bust, if that makes sense.
Avi, are you saying crypto is now a consensus trade?
I think in a way it's becoming a consensus trade. And so what we're doing right now is we're shifting from we are the contrarians battling against the world, and our alpha comes from understanding something that other people don't. I think that the majority of growth that comes from here actually comes from people that already kind of believe in it, but are just way too slow moving to get in it. And there's a wave of capital that's coming that, is in tune with it, that knows what crypto is, that likes crypto. They're just way slower than us, right? And it's going to take them a lot longer to figure out what's going on, as opposed to being a contrarian trade.
Do you?
I mean, you see that with options volume, though, like even just like the shift in where options volume is going, right? I think that's already starting to happen. It also has profound implications for market microstructure, which I think is really exciting, just from a liquidity perspective and volatility perspective.
Do you think that the money that's like slowly trickling in is trickling in mostly to majors, or is it also like moving down the risk curve? And like how quickly like do you think that's happening? Because like from my point of view, I see in my mind it's like people are okay buying Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that's good because I don't really see Bitcoin going like sub 30 or like very much lower than that, just because there's so much sideline money being like, okay, if this goes lower, we're gonna deploy some capital here. And so I'm looking for like other plays in crypto. They're like, if the majors are okay, then that means other stuff can do well also. So yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've recently been on the phone with a lot of people in TradFi that are like, I need to buy this thing on Uniswap. Is that where it trades? I'm buying it. Like there are a lot of people that are going really far down the risk curve. I mean, dude, I was talking with a TradFi manager that manages billions and billions of dollars, and he's asking me about this Ohm fork, and he's like, I'm aping this thing with. I might buy this with some of our fund money, and I was like, what?
That's crazy. That's actually insane.
Like this, it's happening, man. Like,
It's inevitable, but it's inevitable. It's inevitable, right? I think it's inevitable. Because look, the reality of the situation, like inflation is 5%, 7%, 10%, whatever you want to call the number, right? Treasuries are yielding, 2-3% max. So where's the alpha, right? There are not that many places where there's alpha, and crypto is one of those places. Like there's an opportunity at alpha, if there's a good arb to be had, if you can trade vol, people are going to go there. Right. So there's so many trades that have just become so large and so consensus driven. Like what you're talking about, Z, is finding consensus trades before they become a consensus trade, right? And being in early. And I feel like everyone's seen like the incredible results that crypto firms have had, and they want in on the action. So I think to me, it's like, it's inevitable. All markets converge to crypto markets eventually. That's my thesis. I hope that works out for me. If not, I'm
I'm screwed.
I'm going to be sleeping on someone's couch. I'm going to be homeless.
Oh my God.
You can go to that person on the comments house who.
Yeah, the sent down people will fund it.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good.
All right, we've been talking for almost 2 hours. Z, you had one last topic. People get angry with you when you tweet about Ethereum. Why have you been winding people up, mate?
Oh my God. So I don't know. Ethereum people, like I was like one of the people who talked about the L1 trade a lot. Like last year, like Solana, like Avalanche and other ones. And essentially the entire year, the .eth people was like, oh, this is not decentralized. This is like a centralized VC coin. Like their plans for scaling won't work. Like they don't know what they're talking about. So it's just like my pushback on that is like, their argument is that Ethereum is the most decentralized. It's the safest, has the most mind share. But I think one of the most important things in crypto is decentralization of ideas. And if you're going to have that, you need multiple people working on different solutions all at the same time, trying to fix the same problem. And when that is happening, that's when the space is going to do the best, because it's like people are you're like forced to do well because you're competing with other people that are also trying to solve the same problem. So like, I don't think any person right now can definitively say what the best design for blockchains and blockchain scaling is in 10 years right now. So I think that it's fair to have like developers and different people working on different solutions all at the same time. I don't think it's fair really to say that because you're not working on Ethereum, you don't have crypto's best interests at heart. I just don't think that's a fair point to have.
It's interesting that the layer 1 battles became like a proper knife fight, like Avalanche, Luna, Harmony, Solana, like there's like there's like a lot of them that all were fighting for the same users and like fighting hard. Like Tezos even went into this like weird, all the other blockchains are destroying the world like, type of advertising.
The green chain.
Yeah, like what a massive self-own for the industry. Like people were like, yeah, I've seen that advert, this is right. But then Tezos still went down. Like they all fight really hard for the same users, but in the Ethereum layer 2 wars, the most technically sound projects are just coasting. They're like they're not aggressive about growth. They you know, it's like Optimism even live. Like is that still not,
I think it's
still
live.
live?
Yeah,
Like
it's live.
can you do
Live
anything
out
on
there
it?
just doesn't have any usage. I mean,
Yeah, and it's like it's crazy. And maybe it's like the bridges that people like, it's different bridging to a L1. Maybe it's the native token or something, but it feels very different in the L1 space and the L2 space, where the L2s really feel like they're coasting and not going to war, and the L1s are like, they know it's a bloodbath to like onboard incremental users.
I think that's bearish for L2s. I mean, war drives eyeballs. War drives usage. You know, you want these people fighting it out, duking it out in public, right? Because then that means that people are paying attention, and people will form little tribes and little communities, and I mean, I think it's something bullish personally.
I think the future is modular. Like I do think that the roll-up centric roadmap makes sense. I think that separating like the execution layer from the consensus and data availability layers is like a valid like step moving forward. But yeah, like they're just not as focused on getting new users, and I don't really understand why. Like Ethereum, they always say, oh, they're just marketing machines, but it's like, you need marketing for people to understand what your tech does and why they should be using your tech instead of other things. Because if you don't have that, the people that aren't in crypto don't know what like a roll-up is, or how Arbitrum is related to Ethereum. Like they have no way of knowing that unless they're told that. So yeah.
But that's a fundamental issue, right? I think if you look, like, what can I uniquely do on Avalanche, for example, that I can't do on another chain? I still don't know the answer to that question. What can I uniquely do?
I think the answer is, at moments of time, get rich. Like that's why I think the layer 2s have not done so well, because it's never been true that as a user I can go there and make money.
Yeah,
it's like I can go there and buy a rug, or I can go there and use the clone of ARV, which is already at its valuation potential, is already considered like a blue chip.
Exactly.
People aren't looking to like buy those things. They're like trying to be early as a service to stuff. So I think that's the unique selling point of these layer 1s over time, has been like, this is the ecosystem that is currently thriving, and layer 2s have not really managed to cultivate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Z is spot on. It is towards more modular, but I do still hold the belief I held on the last episode, which like might change over time. But I do think we're going to see convergence around a handful of layer 1s and their consensus models. I think that's just like inevitable. Like some chains are just going to be more secure and be better settlement layer. And I think again the narrative around Bitcoin there is just getting started, right? So I think there's a really exciting future ahead for Bitcoin. I think a lot of people dismiss Bitcoin, but I think that is a fundamental mistake. Like all roads do in many ways lead back to Bitcoin. Maybe I'm a maxi after all.
Bi-fi. Bullish Bi-fi.
Bi-fi. Okay, I love you guys, but when we started this podcast, I was really craving nachos, and that craving has only gotten more intense.
All right, let's sign off. Peace.
All right.
All right, guys.
Adios, everybody.